Well, thank you for joining today. We're getting a ton of questions from our customers as they try and figure out the best and the fastest way to figure out how to get all their employees to work from home safely. But as you know, there are a lot of things to consider. We've assembled some of our best and brightest folks to think through and to talk through some of the consideration you may want to implement as you're building your perfect work from home solution. So we've got a lot to cover today, but let's get started with mobility. Mike, introduce yourself real quick, but I want to talk about VDI because a lot of our customers are calling in and asking about VDI. What should they do? How should they expand? Let's talk about that for a second.
Yeah, appreciate that, and good to be a part of this. So Mike Elred here. I'm a mobility solution architect within our pre-sales practice, and we are certainly seeing from our customers an effort to enable a remote workforce, both from a short-term and a long-term perspective. A lot of organizations probably have an existing VDI infrastructure, but what they're looking to understand is how best to expand and get those users that haven't used it historically. Is it delivering it through a thin client? Is it delivering it through a remote web access? So those are some of the things that they're looking for. Some of our partners that we're certainly looking to help our customers evaluate are Citrix and VMware. And the key that we're looking at, our customers are getting a better understanding as is not turnkey. It's not simple. So we're sitting down, getting a better understanding of what applications that they're needing to run, what desktops, compute, a bunch of variables. So certainly going back to the kind of the needs and requirements assessments. At the same time, though, with the advent and leveraging the Office productivity suites and web-based tools like Office 365 or Google G Suite, we're seeing some opportunities for our clients to be able to get their employees more productive quicker and really kind of use those tools as a day one deliverable as they figure out how to extend the behind the scenes or the behind the firewall resources to those employees. At the same time, we're seeing organizations leverage MFA as well to provide those users with a secure access across all those different applications, again, both the virtual set and the cloud or SaaS-based applications too. So good opportunities here for our clients to get the right tools for our customers. And again, it kind of comes back to the needs, requirements, evaluation to determine the right path.
Thanks, Mike. One of the things we've heard of and we've definitely seen over the last couple of weeks, given the situation, all our customers are trying to get laptops out to their end users, right? Unfortunately, they might be stocking situations. There's a lot of things going on. People are buying a lot of laptops. So what we're finding is people are saying, listen, let's just go ahead rather than trying to go that route. Or if they can't get that fast enough, could we stand up a VDI environment really fast? So are you seeing customers standing up just plain vanilla generic VDI? Because you can't do, I agree that you need to understand the profiles, you need to understand kind of the application stacks as to what people are using, but they don't have the time right now. They just have to get people up and running, working. And I get Office 365, all great ways to do it, but some of our customers just have those special applications that are still running on-prem or in a custom application of some sort that they have to get up and running really fast. So you're seeing a lot of customers doing that as well, where they're saying, listen, let's bring in an all-in-one solution really quickly. Let's fire up 1,000 Windows desktops and they come get to it remotely. Are you seeing that at all?
Yeah, I think they are. And we're also seeing remote desktops like running in a cloud environment as another potential option to explore for that use case rather than trying to expand your existing environment, your infrastructure. We're looking at ways to leverage Horizon on Amazon Web Services or Citrix on Azure as some potential options to get those users productive quickly without having to spend a lot of time figuring out the internal infrastructure required. So again, kind of taking the benefits of cloud and the ability for productivity day one, certainly.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. Really good insights there. Sven, let's turn over to you. Let's talk networking. Do a quick intro, though, if you don't mind.
Yes, hello. My name is Sven Rasmussen. I'm team lead for enterprise networking at CDW. I work with about 80 solution architects across the United States, and we help customers with all their network connectivity needs.
Awesome. So let's talk VPN. That's been one of the other questions. A lot of customers are trying to figure out how to scale out their VPN or even implement VPN like, right now if they haven't, actually rolled out a lot of different VPN clients. So let's talk about VPN and then kind of the other impacts to networking, because I'm sure there's a couple our customers need to consider.
Sure. So VPN, we're getting customers that are asking us, what can we do right now to connect to our networks? And so we have to think on our feet and we have to think fast. So we ask questions like, well, what infrastructure do you have right now at your headquarters that maybe you're not utilizing for VPN? So there's a lot of routers and firewalls out there that people aren't using for VPN. So if they download the VPN clients and load them on their endpoint devices, then that's a short-term quick solution that they can do today.
Awesome. Perfect. How about let's think through the types of VPN, because obviously there's the client VPN portion that's fairly straightforward, right? You have
Sure.
a client like an AnyConnect from a Cisco perspective, and I'm sure there's many others that are out there. But you obviously install it on the end user's client, but then there's also site-to-site VPN. I know that's one of the things that some customers have chosen to do in mass quantities even, because you're kind of like almost extending out your private network at work all the way down to your end user at their home, thereby giving them controlled access to all the applications, better quality of service. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So to touch on client VPN real quick, so basically that's having a VPN client on your endpoint device, so on your notebook or on your tablet or on your smartphone. So that's something that you can download, and that's per device. And then secondly is the site-to-site VPN that you mentioned. So that's using like your router or a home firewall, creating a secure tunnel back to your headquarters. And so as we scale, we have to think about, all right, well, how many people did we originally define our VPN access for? And so today, people are seeing that maybe it's not big enough. So you have to reevaluate what you have at your head end. So this is called the VPN concentrator. So the VPN concentrator basically handles all the VPN connections from all the clients, and it also handles all the VPN connections from the home routers.
So there's a big advantage there, because as everyone is, this current situation right now, right? If you think it through, our kids are home. They're doing a lot of e-learning. They're doing a lot of streaming online, right? In terms of movies and stuff like that during the day while we're working from home. So there's a lot of contention now on that home router. But it sounds like with site-to-site VPN, you can almost siphon off the internet, right? Be able to control some of the other traffic, deprioritize it, and then make sure your voice calls, your video calls are going way better than it normally would if everyone was just sharing the line. There's some truth to that, right?
Sure, definitely. You can do quality of service with home routers. There's some that you can do traffic shaping. So you can go in and actually set the limits for different applications like Netflix and YouTube and WebEx and things like that. So you can actually go in and set those parameters so then that way maybe non-essential internet usage is kind of throttled down. And you can also set it during different hours. So during work hours, you can set it so that work applications are priority. And then afterwards, after 5 p.m. or whatever, you can go ahead and set it for, wide open for everyone else.
Awesome. Thanks, Sven. That was also very insightful. Mike Murphy, let's talk collab. Now, obviously, collab's a big stack. We've got to talk about voice in terms of how we call and how we talk to our employees and our peers. We've got to talk about meetings like web conferencing or video conferencing like WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Zoom, et cetera, et cetera. And then messaging. Messaging seems to be the one piece that's keeping us all together right now in real time, either Microsoft Teams or WebEx Teams or Slack or whatever else that's out there. And then there's contact center. So it's a lot for you to cover. But you've been talking to customers, the whole time, right? As they've been trying to figure out how they establish really good work from home solutions. Let's talk collab. What's going on out there? What are customers asking? How can they make things a little bit better?
Yeah, let's dip our toe in, and then you can bring me back if I get too far away. But you're right; it's quite the stack, and you're exactly right. I mean, we're having all the same conversations about collab that we normally have, but instead of crawl, walk, run, we're almost being forced into fire, ready, aim. If you like this phrasing, and you know that's just what we have to do. So when you look at things like that, we usually start with evaluate what you have, right? Because depending on your situation, you may now have a ton of work from home folks that are ramping up quickly. So you may have not already pulled some levers that you already have in your system. So for instance, in your PBX, it may, or your unified communication system, it may be as simple as looking into enabling call forwarding and allowing your users to manage that call forwarding because they may have portals to manage it. And then there's even more advanced features such as, they may be called Find Me, Follow Me or single number reach, where users can actually manage the hours that their calls are forwarded. Maybe we're forwarding it to a mobile device or forwarding it to a landline, but then that system can pull that call back in and keep it on the corporate voicemail. So things like that that are very basic, evaluate those, evaluate all those features and what we can unlock to users to empower them to do that work from home when it comes to, in this case, voice. When we talk about meeting, you have to look at what platforms you're using today and then how far that's going to scale, right? Maybe you have an EA and you haven't tapped into some of those meeting features. Let's evaluate that, right, and see how far can we take that. And then many of the cloud providers for virtual meetings and video conferencing, they're extending offers now, knowing that folks are scrambling to work from home. So evaluate that if you don't have something in-house already. And then how we connect, stitching that all together. There's there's several names for it depending on your vendors, such as edge technologies or hybrid technologies, ways to stitch those cloud products together with on-prem, and then extend that to your users for work from home. Of course, we love VPN. We heard from our friends in networking a little bit earlier. VPN allows you to securely connect all that stuff from home. But then there are collaboration technologies where you're connecting directly to the cloud, or you can extend that on-premise registration to folks at home without necessarily relying on VPN. You'll probably need it for other things. But there's a lot of things you can do there with what you already have, and then we figure out how to stack on top of that to make it all work.
Awesome, fantastic. So I know Jeff is just itching to talk about security. Jeff, introduce yourself real quick. We've just to kind of really summarize real quick, we've talked about VDI, we've talked about working from home with VPN, secure VPN, site-to-site VPN. We've talked about collab in terms of voice video, and how kind of we need those tools to work from home. But I'm sure, Jeff, as you're thinking this through, you're like, wow, we're putting a lot of things that normally is in the office now at home. That creates all sorts of security concerns and implications. So let's talk about what customers can do to think that through and make sure they're building possibly the safest environment for the end users.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you, Nathan. Hi, I'm Jeff Falcon. I'm one of our practice leads within our cybersecurity business unit. Great to be here today with my colleagues. So from a cybersecurity standpoint, as we're talking today, much of what we've discussed can be crystallized and brought together with a couple of different concepts. And I know we're talking about networking, we're talking about cloud-enabled applications, we're talking about our ability to be burstable and elastic with our new environment that we're all adapting to. So some of the things that were mentioned, I can kind of bring back full circle just from a core principle security standpoint. It's really important to make sure that as security practitioners, first and foremost, as we're deploying or looking to scale out new applications and new resources, keep those gold images of those virtual machines, those specifically that Mike talked about, up to the latest and greatest patches that are available, first and foremost. We talked a lot about VPN as well. We need to make sure that we're testing the capacity and the scale of that VPN during peak load hours. This is critical, and we need to address any of those limitations in the meantime immediately. We talked about multi-factor authentication. This is something that's been around for a long time, but again, it's so critical. It's almost the equivalent to sitting in your car and buckling up with a seatbelt. It's that important. It's that necessary. It's table stakes. But now is a time to be reminded of how critical this actually is. Have two-factor or multi-factor authentication in place. Ensure that all users have it, no exceptions, no backdoors. And if you do not have multi-factor authentication in place, try to explore some possibilities to accelerate the deployment of that solution. There are now cloud-based and proven technologies in the market that can help you scale and adapt as needed. One final note there as well is, as we're really adapting to this new environment, and this is going to be a challenge for home users and for IT practitioners and IT departments alike, but trying to consolidate or refrain from using those non-standard, non-company or institutionally issued applications for collaboration and file share and cloud storage. This is where data sprawl becomes an issue, and we don't want that flying out of control wildly. So just some tips and some observations here as to what the recommendations our practice is making for our clients.
That's great, Jeff. Thank you. I just realized we didn't really get into video conferencing, and obviously there's a lot of platforms out there. Morph, I'll turn this back to you for a second. But like the funny thing I've been hearing over and over again is like, hey, listen, turn off your video. Video is not efficient, all that kind of stuff. And the reality is, most of the video clients today can automatically scale up and down. So if you don't have a whole lot of bandwidth, it automatically gives you a low resolution, right? So it's not consuming as much because it can't consume anymore. So talk about video conferencing. Almost everyone is now on a video conference, like through all the different providers we already talked about. So what should customers consider around video conferencing in terms of deploying, making sure people are using it correctly, and then just being able to scale?
Yeah, you bet. As you can see, I mean, we're leveraging that technology right now as we're on this this webinar or call, virtual meeting, whatever you'd like to call it. But it's the basics. Certainly, could someone throw in some AirPods and use their webcam built into the laptop? It can, but that's that's barely minimally viable. If we want folks to really feel connected, especially if we're going to be in this work from home situation, you got to up the level of collaboration tools you're giving them a little bit if you can, right? So I have a high quality webcam here that I'm using and a high quality headset. This provides a good experience for the end user, empowers them, but more importantly, it provides a good experience for all the others they're collaborating with noise cancellation and high quality video and things like that. And you're right, there's a ton of intelligence built into the platforms to help figure out, what quality video we should stream at. So usually that takes care of itself. Worst case scenario, you're on a really choked link and you just turn your video off. But the other piece of that I want to mention about video conferencing, other than the technology, which is very important, is getting used to the video culture, right? If you're not, Nathan, you yourself told all of us beforehand, hey, wear a nice shirt. Clean up behind your video camera, right? Have a nice resting work face is what we say when we're on video. These are things that you don't think about, right? If you're not used to on video and you're not sitting in the same room with folks. So it's a culture thing too, and that taps into adoption and making sure you're messaging to your users, finding some champions to help them along as they learn how to get used to this work from home culture, especially using video.
Awesome. And just to kind of give you an idea, like I think that the challenge right now, is people are using whatever they have, right? They may not be. I mean, I understand the most ideal situation, and because of us and our culture and our work culture, we're all outfitted with probably the best technology there is, but not everyone has that opportunity, right? So I think right now, if you use your iPhone's camera, use your iPad's camera, use your whatever device you have, it has a camera, use it. But obviously, ideally, a webcam or even a full-fledged video unit, that's what I'm using. And I'm sure if we go around the room real quick, we're using everything. Everything's different. Some of you using cameras inside your laptop. Some are using iPhones. Some are using a webcam. We're using, I think Craig and I are using video units. So you use what you have, right? But ultimately, I do think that long term, you need to think through: is this going to be a normal thing? How really how much of a really good experience do you want to get everyone into so that they're completely engaged during those video calls? Let's talk adoption. So, all the stuff is great until, you figure out users don't really know how to use the technology you're trying to deploy. So, Craig, let's first of all, introduce yourself real quick. You've played a really important role at CDW with our customers, trying to make sure they think through adoption. So, the obvious issue right now is that we don't have a whole lot of time, right? We've got to get thousands of people online really, really fast. So talk about some tips that, you can give our customers to getting people to use the tools fast.
Okay, thanks. So my name is Craig Radloff. I'm an enterprise collaboration consultant here at CDW. And I've been dealing with adoption in the team for 3+ years. So it's very near and dear to my heart. I think we would be what you would call forced adoption right now. So there's different levels of it, but how do you get your users to effectively use these tools? And it kind of encompasses everything. We focus a lot in collaboration around adoption, but it's really all of these tools, the VPNs, everything is how do we effectively use it? And it comes down to several things. People need to know what tools they should use. So effective communication and even a marketing spin on it, on what tools I have and I should be using. So we don't want users going out and doing shadow IT, or users that are tools that can't be tracked by, or may not be secure and can't be tracked by IT. We want to effectively let our users know what they should be using, how to use it, how to get help. Things like communication should not only come from IT, but down from management. So managers need to say, hey, here's the tools you should be using, here's why you should use it, how to get help. Frequently asked questions. With the number of people that are working remote, your support centers are going to be overwhelmed with calls. So how do I get the information out to them? Frequently asked questions, internal websites on how to get training. Leverage what the vendors and partners have to offer. CDW has a SharePoint page out there for customers on what are best practices, effective tools, all of that. The different collaboration vendors have a lot of training material out there, whether it's Cisco WebEx, Microsoft Teams, or Skype, Zoom. All of these major collaboration vendors have really good training videos that are out there, and training documents. Leverage that information so that your users really understand it. And then put out one big thing, especially around meetings, is etiquette. Do people understand how to mute? Do they understand that they have a headset? Or, so we've all been on meetings where somebody jumps in and somebody's not muted, or you're getting echo, or all those. Information around that etiquette is another big thing. And again, let culture kind of take care of things. If you get on a good meeting, people are like, wow, that was a really good meeting. Why? Well, it had an agenda. Everybody joined on time. Things like that really, really help, as well as standards. So people understand your scheduling, how you're joining, and how you're sharing within a meeting. So that was a lot of stuff right there. But I think the key message around adoption is really getting that information out to your people so that they know how to get help. They know what tool they should use. And that might be what you have available. Mike talked about, using call forwarding or something like a single number reach. Or maybe you do have access to a full soft phone or that IM client. So use the tools that you have and make sure your users understand where to get information on it.
So I think the messaging is clear. I mean, obviously there are a lot of things, and I think the challenge you have is when you all of a sudden send a lot of people to work from home that they've never done that before. It's a lot, right? You just gave us a lot of data. So one of the best ways I think that we've helped customers, and customers have then helped themselves, is trying to create the sense of ambassadorship, right? Finding people inside the business unit that act as the ambassador, that becomes, think of the ambassador as the cheerleader of the technology and the experience you want to deliver, right? So talk about that, because we've done that for customers like nationwide, but let's talk about how we do that.
Yeah, so ambassador or champions, a lot of times what we call it, and basically there are people that are always kind of forward on technology. They're team leaders, they're excited. People go to them when they have questions. And again, it's kind of that same cultural thing where, Bob or Jane, boy, they just had a great meeting. How can I go to them? And, that's equipping those people with the right equipment. So making sure they have a video device or a quality headset or whatever it is, making sure those champions, and a lot of times you will come about it natural. Sometimes those champions just kind of pop out. They're the people that naturally go to. Sometimes you have to ask for that. But if you have that champion or ambassador, and it should be within every office or within every group, there should be an ambassador out there where people can naturally go to and ask questions. And maybe you provide a little extra training. Maybe that person gets some advanced training on an event center type application or some sort of webcast. So because if you run an event center, it takes a different training set than just a normal WebEx or Microsoft Teams meeting, you need different skill set to do that. So you give those, identify the champions, communicate who they are, and then give them the advanced training and the tools, and then that will help disseminate information and support the meetings that that you're having both internally, and a lot of these are customer facing. On the sales side, we now can't go to a lot of our on-site customer meetings, so we want to make sure that we're having effective communications and meetings with our customers as well. So that helps as well.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's very insightful. All right, let's go back to Sven and talk networking. And this time, instead of talking about the client side, let's talk about the back end, because obviously we've sent a lot of people home, and for a lot of our customers, we still have a ton of enterprise applications that are still sitting in the office that we have to access. It could be VDI farms that we talked about with virtual desktops. It could be enterprise ERP type systems, right, or accounting systems that we still have to access. So we're basically now creating a ton more traffic internally, especially if it's coming in from the outside. Or in the case of VDI, if you had 2,000 users and 100 servers, the math is not right, but just go with it for now, right? But if you had 2,000 users on 100 servers, all of a sudden, if you need to get to 10,000, you're gonna expand your server capacity a lot. So that changes the core networking needs. So Sven, talk about how you need to think about capacity planning, because it's not just about the end user, right? Not all our apps are in the cloud. There's a lot still on-prem. So let's talk about capacity planning and what our customers should be thinking about.
Sure, that's a great question. So generally, everyone's connecting to a device called a VPN concentrator. So, and that's sized for a specific number of users, specific number of tunnels coming back to it. And if we don't consider what's the maximum number of users I want to connect to this device, when we purchase it, then we may run into a situation like some people today that they can't get everyone connected back to their company. So that's one thing, is that when you're looking at having remote connectivity and you're buying one of these VPN concentrator devices, then you want to know, okay, how many people do I need to connect if we run into a situation that everyone has to work from home? What's my maximum? And that's what you need to size your device for. Even if you never get to that point, you want to make sure that you have a box that if we need to send everyone home, that they can all connect back to it. And then you also have to consider redundancy. So redundancy is key to networking. So you want to have two of everything in case the first thing fails. The second one's a backup. So that's my advice on that, is think of the worst case scenario, and that's what you plan for, even if you're never going to use it.
Awesome. Thank you. Mike, Mike Elrod, let's go back to you. We talked about VDI. We didn't really talk about UEM, so Unified Endpoint Management, because I feel like that's the glue that kind of unifies all the desktops, the Macs, the mobile devices, to making sure everything is configured securely. So let's talk about that, because obviously customers have deployed that for a while, but now more than ever, it seems like that seems to be the most important piece as you're getting devices out. Want to talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a great point, because a tool set like UEM can really help IT check some boxes for a remote workforce much faster than let's say VDI. So a couple things that really come to mind is the benefits of UEM solution. All these modern operating systems like Mac OS, Windows 10, certainly iOS and Android, all have modern APIs, which means IT with a UEM tool set can remotely and over the air manage and push configurations, push permissions, provide the right access, right? Leverage an MFA and a single sign-on solution, all done over the air from a web kind of environment, or web console. And it's a great time now to really consider those, because of the a number of factors, but certainly to embrace BYO more so now than today, now than ever before, and certainly from a long-term perspective. As we leverage folks like Jeff, we leverage folks like Sven and the collab guys, we can start to pull in and publish and promote and build catalogs, enterprise catalogs, right? So that the end users are productive day one, because again, that's a pretty common mantra, is productivity day one, simplified access, but the right security. framework. Jeff mentioned patching as it related to the VDI stack. Same concept here with UEM. One of the big challenges around some of the operating systems is the ability to have that control and push a patch down to an endpoint. And so with the UEM frameworks, we actually have the ability to, automate the patching and gain visibility into the success or failure of those patches and, operate as an IT team effectively as well as for pull-in security. So we're also seeing the extension of this UEM framework to include zero trust concepts, pulling in an ecosystem of, integrated technologies like CASBs, like and next-gen endpoint security, so that we're checking the appropriate and proper boxes. So BYO can exist, remote off-domain connectivity can exist. We can pull in per-app VPN, full device VPN. Again, all those tools can be built into this UEM framework and certainly get the user, up and running in IT and security, happy and enabling that workforce with minimal downtime.
That's awesome. I don't think that's that's a must-have. That's definitely a must-have in my book, right? Especially if you're deploying all these devices right now. Thank you for that, Jeff. We talked about from a context of security. We talked about the end user side because we're deploying all this stuff to the home office. But there unfortunately there are they quoted the bad guys, right? The cyber criminals that are out there that are now trying to take advantage of everyone that are trying to deploy these things in the background. Talk about security and what our customers can do just to protect their infrastructure, right? The data center, the back end, right? Not so much the front end. What should they do? What should they be looking for? Those kinds of things.
Absolutely. First and foremost, I just want to say I think it's incredibly exciting to hear how collectively we're coming together and how interwoven the concept of security and risk management as a whole is being baked into and incorporated into the process as we're speaking here throughout the time that we've been together here. I think it's yet another reminder that taking precautionary measures and making sure that we're building in cybersecurity principles and good practices and the proper technical controls to limit and mitigate our risk is so important throughout the entire process, not just at the 1 yard line when we're about to finish a project, but really breathe that into the system throughout its entire design and deployment life cycle. So it's exciting to hear that. But you're exactly right, Nathan. I mean, look, this is a situation where through the lens of a security practitioner or defenders, this is business as usual for us. It's the core mission and the risks for us haven't changed. We're trained to be calm and focused and disciplined and vigilant, and that is no more true than where we are in today's work from home model. This is also, as you mentioned, this is unfortunately a golden opportunity for cyber criminals who are looking to penetrate cyber defenses and to disrupt our businesses. And we're seeing these types of events unfold and take place. So there's some recommended actions here that we can take. First and foremost, as architects and designers and defenders, those who are responsible for defending the estate and for defending our corporate and institutional data, we need to do some basic things. Hygiene always comes into play here. So continuously scan and understand what type of activities look abnormal aside from your normal day-to-day business activities. We're looking for signs of shadow IT, setting up rogue access servers or services such as RDP or SSH, trying to pop a shell in a Linux system, these types of activities. From an end user perspective, certainly need to keep our radar up and alert as it pertains to phishing attempts. So this is another reminder that we have to be vigilant and disciplined as to what's coming into our email boxes, setting up the proper procedures and communication protocols for organizations to have alerting to some type of suspect email is going to be imperative in this day and age. So make sure that we're keeping our radar up for those types of emails. Following best practices for secure account and password management. There's simply no justification, at least in my mind and those in the security industry, for shared credentials and passwords that are easy to guess. This is a time to make sure that we're reinforcing those good principles. And if you don't have a good email protection system in place, this is the time to start making sure we have that considered as part of the architecture and the deployment. And we want to configure those solutions properly. It's not just looking for elementary type of spam attacks. We're looking for more the targeted, sophisticated email attacks that could pose real threats to the business. Testing those backup solutions. Backup is an imperative part of any strategic security and sound strategy. Make sure that we can recover data in the event that there is a ransomware attack, and making sure that we're following good practices around configurations, which goes back to the points we've made earlier about that gold image and keeping that in check. Configuration drift is a challenge. We don't want things to slowly move away from that original secure state. We want to keep that backup configuration, not just for systems, but for network infrastructure that's critical to operating the business, firewalls, routers, switches, et cetera. So keep that in mind. And I know we're talking a lot about on-premise and cloud, and really it's evident that we're talking hybrid here in this type of environment.
Absolutely.
But when we look specifically at organizations that may be more apt to leverage cloud services, or might even be cloud native organizations, this is also a good time to understand that those workloads that might be in a hybrid fashion or brought into a public cloud environment need to have those security controls evaluated and tested as well. So just like you would on land, we'll need to do the same thing in a hybrid or public cloud environment. Things like intrusion prevention, file integrity monitoring, anti-malware, log inspection, content filtering. These are solutions called in a new category of technology called cloud workload protection solutions. So those are cloud native tooling and assessments that can be conducted, and also to maybe even potentially look at ways to scan the overall posture and health of the configurations within the public environment. So as we're spinning up and potentially trying to move at a high velocity to adapt to the changes that we need to adapt to, we want to make sure that those sound principles in the public cloud arena are also taken into consideration. So posture management and good hygiene in those workloads that are potentially elastic and moving back and forth is also very critical.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. That was a lot. I mean, it's all great information. I think we need to think through how we can filter down to the most important things that we can do, because everyone is struggling with time right now. You know, everything seems like it's a fire drill. We're just trying to get people working and up and running. In some cases, saving lives, across the country. So, we're running out of time. But here's what I'd ask you each to do, and I'll ask you each. So, just if you had to think about one thing that you want to make sure our customers are doing, what would that be? And I'll go around the horn. Sven, I'll start with you.
All right, thank you. So remember that bandwidth is a scarce resource, that it's a limited quantity that you have in your home. So if you're sharing it with other people, maybe set up a schedule. Also, if you have a wireless access point that you're connecting to, make sure that you're sitting as close as possible to it, because the further away you are you're going to have lower throughput, and it's also going to impact everyone else connected to the AP. And then lastly is, if you want maximum throughput, connect directly into your home router using a Cat5 cable or Cat6 cable, and then that way you won't have to share the wireless with everyone else.
That is great advice, Sven. If you notice, there's my AP right in the back. It's really close to me, just enough to not get any radiation, right? But just enough to also get the best bandwidth possible. Mike Elrod, what's your one big thing for customers?
Yeah, I was thinking about this in the context of the end user experience, right? So we can certainly layer on a lot of different protocols and rules and procedures, because we're moving so quickly. And I want to certainly reinforce that the balancing of simplified access and productivity with the right security, the right kind of access mechanisms is imperative now, so that we're minimizing that desire for shadow IT. But again, to kind of come back to something I said before, we're enabling the users to be productive day one. And that way we minimize the amount of downtime there is as we shift into these different work styles. So certainly want to just reinforce the end user's experience and keep them in mind as you design these different types of strategies.
Awesome. Mike Murphy, what's your one big thing?
Get people on video. And if we want to do that, if you have the opportunity to give them a better experience by uplifting the equipment they're using, do that. Perception is reality. So if we can up the quality of their video experience, they're going to perceive that as a good experience, and then they're going to keep doing it. If we're giving them the bare minimum, they're going to perceive that as a bad experience, then they're not going to want to turn on their videos. So do what you can to uplift them and encourage them to use that, because that's a great way that we're going to stay connected and see each other, other than seeing each other in the same room.
Awesome. Craig?
I think what we really need to do again is set those standards and communicate so people know what tools they should be using, how to use them correctly, and where you can get help, and make sure that communication comes not only from IT but also from the management on down. Set those expectations for the cultural side that makes sure we have virtual meetings and using the collaboration tools or any other tools that are out there.
And the part that's most important to everyone right now is security. Jeff, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. So starts off with protecting what matters most, making sure that we're matching our security strategy around leadership strategy. And that leadership strategy, by the way, might change hour to hour, day to day. So it's important to be flexible and responsive and ask those tough questions to keep moving forward and evolving. Can we continue operations with our current strategy? What are going to be those strategic next steps that we need to adapt our defenses appropriately? And in some institutions and some businesses, based on their business model, geographic location, or vertical market, it's really important to understand not just what they're up against, but who they're up against. And ultimately, it's really important to identify those risks that you do not want to become a reality and focus right there.
Well, thank you, panel, for the time. I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on right now. I know you're helping customers. So thanks for taking an hour of your time to work through these issues. A lot of our customers have been asking questions, so hopefully they'll find this useful. If you're watching the video, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please ping your account representative at CDW. And finally, thanks for watching again, and have a great day.